This proposal wasn't born out of a commission, but rather from a challenge that Luis Daniel Rivera took very personally. This client, from Virginia, told him he was somewhat frustrated because no one could capture what he envisioned for the house he wanted to build in Puerto Rico. He had visited locations like Dorado Beach, Sabanera, and Palmas del Mar, but none had what he was looking for. When asked by Luis Daniel how he envisioned the residency, he said, within the entire explanation he gave, the summary of it could be summed up in a single sentence. I want to experience the tropics. I want to experience the eternal summer that exists on this island. I want to experience its sunny days, its rainy days, even its stormy days. I want to feel the essence of what it's like to live in Puerto Rico, from the moment I wake up until I close my eyes at night to sleep. With the above stated, Luis Daniel asked him to show him the lot where he planned to build the house. But coincidentally, he had sold it the week before, so he told Luis Daniel that if he knew of any lot, he would let him know so he could survey the property. With that in mind, Luis Daniel asked him to provide him with the wish list, where he would indicate what he wanted in his house, and to provide him with what the previous professionals presented to him that didn't convince him. With the wish list in hand, and with the proposals that had been made to him previously, plus what he had discussed with him, Luis Daniel discovered where the abyss lay that prevented the other professionals from being able to decipher what the client was asking for. They bet on cultural and traditional elements and didn't consider the most important, the climate, flora, fauna, and the eternal summer that exists in Puerto Rico. And that's where Luis Daniel emphasized his approach, giving the client the experience of living in paradise. The true experience of living in the Caribbean tropics of Puerto Rico. Luis Daniel Rivera developed the proposal in a location far from the exclusive suburbs of Dorado Beach and Ritz-Carlton Reserve, Paseos de Dorado, Sabanera, and completely ignoring other locations such as Rio Grande and Palmas del Mar in Higuillar. Instead, he chose a location in a very unique community, the Mameyal community in the coastal neighborhood of Higuillar in Dorado, Puerto Rico. With this decision, Luis Daniel introduced his client to the true essence of living not only in the tropical paradise that is Puerto Rico, but also in community, among its people and its traditions. Far from the walls that segregate and prevent cultures from sharing and strengthening each other's interactions. Because living in Puerto Rico doesn't have to be an extreme risk. Living in Puerto Rico, experiencing its essence, smelling its aroma, experiencing its culture. what Luis Daniel Rivera considers his raw material in his works, the structural concrete insulated panel system, in coordination with Ecologica Carmelo, Inc., Luis Daniel offers his clients a unique experience of living in the Caribbean tropics. This home has been strategically designed to create a unique and mesmerizing interaction with the outdoors. There is no space in this residence that doesn't have contact with the outdoors, while ensuring privacy and intimacy are protected within its interior. During the day, the entire property is illuminated by natural lighting, which, combined with the insulating properties of the SCUP system, provides its inhabitants with a very pleasant interior climate, even on the hottest days in Puerto Rico. The design program, distributed throughout the 3,900 square feet of this property, provides its inhabitants with constant contact with nature in every corner. The minimalism of its design, where white intertwines with the ash grey of the floor, the wood finishes, glass, and stainless steel elements, allows for a pragmatic approach without extravagant luxuries, to enjoy comfort and feel that the investment made for this property was worth it. It was a safe and satisfactory investment in every way. master suite of this proposal, a compact version of the entire proposal. From here, the owner can spend the night and coordinate remote work. He can enjoy a bathroom where he can soak up the idyllic landscape of his surroundings without threatening his privacy. He can also enjoy the warm water of his private pool while contemplating the sunset and the coast during a typical Puerto Rican evening. In this proposal, Luis Daniel Rivera not only manages to capture and translate what the client desired, but also allows him to contemplate, perceive, and feel the experience of what it is like to live in the Caribbean tropics of Puerto Rico. Luis Daniel transformed the natural surroundings of the enclave into a central element of this work, and every space, every corner, every facade of this structure is a consequence of that interaction, which Luis Daniel successfully attempted to transform into a constant relationship between the interior and exterior of this residence. A residence where its simplicity and clarity become its greatest attraction. And certainly, the location where this work is proposed could not have been any other choice, but the one it was. Because this location is what makes it possible for this masterpiece to be erected just as it was intended. I'm Stacy Macallan, thanking you for joining me on this virtual tour of this project developed by Luis Daniel Rivera, which he named Kennedy 1, because it's located on Kennedy Street in the Mameyal community, in the Higuillar neighborhood of Dorado, Puerto Rico.